Okay, hi, welcome to a new video. This is a video following on from the previous video where I spoke briefly about claims made by Alphonso Dunn in relation to plagiarism by Jake Parker. We had a few comments. A lot of people said, well, you didn't watch the full video, therefore your view is invalid. So what I've done is I have subsequently watched the video. I've now taken a copy of that video and I've edited the points out so that we can actually examine the points raised by Alphonso point by point to see if there's any validity in what he's saying. So let's take a look at this first point, shall we?
On this, and then I'm like, this also looks oddly familiar. Take a closer look at it, and I'm like, wow. That looks really familiar. Okay, in my same book, following along, here I have some examples of how to vary, how to use a texture and still have it convey light and shadow. That was the idea of this illustration. And you can see even in my workbook where I've also demonstrated something very, very similar to this. You know, at this point I'm a little concerned, like, okay, I know, you know, it may be a coincidence that he has used images very close to what I have in my book, but give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's just a 1-2 case scenario, and it won't necessarily be something that I see in the rest of the book. So here it is. You can see the scale texture, the bumpy texture. You see the fur texture, the scale texture, the bumpy texture, and the fur texture. All right.
Okay, so first claim. So Dunn sort of maintains that Parker stole the idea of putting textures onto shapes, in this case square and a rounded shape. He also says that Parker lifted the phrase add variety and follow form because they're the concepts that also have been sort of roughed out in both chapters on both pages. But let's take a look, shall we? So Parker uses two texture types. He uses a circular texture and a short like a short hatch, like a short hair sort of texture, and he applies it to square and circular swatches, and the words follow form are literally just applied to underneath some circular swatches to show an example of something following a form. Presumably this is there because a sphere is a very good rounded form and it would demonstrate the concept. Dunn, on the other hand, really goes to town on this page. You get a lot of information. So Dunn starts off with square swatches, and you get a circular texture and you get the short hair texture. But then you also get the snakeskin texture, and he uses that to show variety and variation of sort of the pattern. He then has a second set of swatches. These are elliptical, and they show the concept of breaking the outline. Now Parker doesn't mention sort of breaking the outline. He's all about follow form, that's it. The other one is a variety, but it doesn't mention breaking the outline. And the second set of elliptical swatches deal with a bumpy texture, which could be the circular texture. On that one it looks like Dunn's saying less is more, and use to sort of infer shading and not have to draw every single element of the texture and leave some white space on the page, which Parker doesn't cover at all. So Dunn's initial argument is what Parker drew a circular and a short hair texture onto a square, and then demonstrated adverarity on a circular version and follow form on a circular version with those same textures. Dunn uses different textures. He uses for the follow form, which actually in that book, up on that page, it actually says break the outline. He uses like a long hair and a short hair, and uses the circular texture. Is it unique? I'm pretty sure we could probably find a book somewhere that has a circular texture. Is this a strong argument? I would say not really. Well, let me rephrase that. I would say it's not strong. I suspect that there are precedent examples of these sort of textures showing up in other works. If that's the case, Parker can claim there's a precedent that's already been established that other people have done this. So this is not the strongest argument to leave the gate with. There is an argument there, and there is possibly a discussion that can be had about how you can prevent plagiarizing drawing or putting textures onto a generic shape, in this case a square. Okay, I think we've talked long about this first sample. Let's find some more.
Here I have some examples of how to vary, how to use a texture and still have it convey light and shadow. That was the idea of this illustration. And you can see even in my workbook where I've also demonstrated something very, very similar to this. You know, at this point I'm a little concerned, like, okay, I know, you know, it may be a coincidence that he has used images very close to what I have in my book, but give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's just a 1-2 case scenario, and it won't necessarily be something that I see in the rest of the book. So here it is. You can see the scale texture, the bumpy texture. You see the fur texture. The scale texture, the bumpy texture, and the fur texture. All right. You can.
So, this is a difficult one, because on the face of it, we're asking people to say that drawing a three-dimensional platonic solid like a sphere or a cylinder or a cube, putting a texture on it and making that texture follow the form of the object is itself something that can be plagiarized. I don't think that's possibly anything. I don't think you can really argue that. I don't think you can sort of put that forward. So we have to look at we have to look at what's actually on the page, what's been drawn, and where Parker, where Dunn is thinking it's coming from. Because Dunn's given us some examples. So in Parker's book, you've got a short-haired sphere, a bumpy cylinder, and a snakeskin covered cube. In Dunn's book, you've got a sphere with hair. It's a longer hair, and you can actually see the crown at the back of the sphere, which is actually, I think, is a really good indication for form and the direction of the hair movement. You've got the cylinder made of snakeskin and a cube made of wood. Dunn then tells us that the gradients used on the next page could have been lifted by Parker, but they could have also been lifted from the workbook. This is where it sort of gets a bit fuzzy, because the gradients on the next page are for different items entirely. You've got a wood gradient, a long hair gradient, a circular gradient, and like a wiry hair gradient. So they're not replicated anywhere on that page. So we sort of have to discount that page, and we have to look therefore at the workbook. And those gradients are there. There is a short hair, there is a bumpy, and there is a sort of snakeskin texture. So now we're expected to, well, I'm not expected to believe, because that sounds terrible, but now the argument is that Parker has took two different books and Frankenstein together a page about texture following a form by taking the concept from one book, i.e. drawing platonic solids with a texture on, and then underneath showing the gradient, which is lifted from another book. I mean, if they can prove that, and no one's ever drawn anything like this before, and this is the problem you're going to get with a lot of at least these first two, I don't know, but any predating, any sort of book that predates this, that has anything like this on, can sort of dissolve this case. But yeah, so far this is a trick. This is also a tricky sell. I think this is also not a straightforward claim. All right, let's look at the next example.
5 fundamental skills. 5 fundamental skills. Control, basic strokes, variation, application, and consistency. Where have I seen that before? Of course, my entire second chapter, or second section from my book is based on this. Actually, that is the exact format of the second chapter of my book right here. Strokes, effective pen control, basic types of strokes. He calls it basic strokes. Ways to vary a stroke, the variations of a stroke. He has variation. Ways to use a stroke, how you apply strokes. Application of lines. I notice he doesn't use the word strokes. I guess that would be a dead giveaway, so he uses lines instead. The only thing he added that I didn't add in strokes chapter, he adds consistency, which I covered in the shading chapter. So let's hope that he didn't cover it in the same way I did, right?
Okay, this is a very strange thing to claim plagiarism on. As I understand it, the fundamental skill is something that is understood to be essential to the understanding of the subject. If you learn to draw, you learn how to hold a pen. If you're doing life drawing at an easel, at some point someone will teach you how to use your pen as your pencil as a measure. You know, hold it at arm's length and take a measurement. And this Parker pitches the 5 fundamental skills as that fundamental. Dunn has written 14 pages on this. We at the moment have 1, which we can't read text on. So we I can't really do any kind of comparison of the content, because we don't have the content. For all we know, Parker's written 5 more pages after that, or 10 more pages. All we've got to go on is this one page that's got some drawings at the bottom detailing some concepts, against what Dunn has written, which is 14 pages covering 4 topics. So I don't think this is a particularly strong argument, because I'm pretty sure you could find any drawing books that deal with drawing the same sort of thing, be it pencil or in charcoal, or even things like drawing perspective. And I'm pretty sure at some point there will be a fundamentals chapter or section which details concepts that are going to be the same through the book, through the books, plural. So, you know, the concept of a vanishing point, if you're drawing a perspective, will be covered in a book on perspective. And considering this is all about drawing in ink, the control of a pen, how you hold it, how you use pressure to vary the line width. If everyone's agreed that that's a fundamental skill, then it seems stupid for it to not be present in a book that claims to sort of give you some basic understanding of how to draw in ink. Oh gosh, that was a long way of putting stuff.
Wow, okay, the 5 applications. So what are the 5 applications? Contour, form, local value, shading, and textures. Wow. Now, where have I seen that before? Okay. What he chose to use the word the 5 applications of a stroke. The term I used, the 5 ways to use a stroke, right? And, you know, this is what happens when you look really silly, when you copy someone without knowing why they do what they're doing. You see, I'll explain this. You see, there are more ways to use strokes, and that's one of the main reasons why I didn't have the heading say 5 ways to use a stroke, because there are more. There are more ways to apply strokes. Previously, it was actually, I think I started with around 8 or so. And I gradually revised it over months until I decided on using 5. Now, the similar way we have the 7 elements of art, like line, shape, color, and so on. But the idea is that we are reducing an image to the basic components of an image. You see, so it's not so much, yes, this is how we use a stroke, but it also is true more so to how, when you look at a subject, how do you break it apart? How do you look at an image and break it apart? So looking at an image or a subject, if you're focused on creating a pen and ink drawing, you can look at a photograph, look at a drawing, look at a subject you're drawing, a real life subject, and break it down based on these 5 elements. So everything you see can be broken down in this way. Essentially, this is to represent how you observe and how you draw. Not only how you use them, how you break down a subject and how you reconstruct it using only lines. So obviously, he used the very 5 thing. Here I have texture, here he has texture. Here I have local value, he copied that local value. Here I have shading, what does he have? Light and shadow. Here I have outline, what does he have? Contour. What's the difference? The same thing. Here I have cross contour, what does he use? Form. But it's the same thing. Because if you notice, look at my illustration here where I have cross contour, you can see the lines moving around the form. It's about how we use lines to accentuate the cross contour, the curvature of a form, how you make it 3-dimensional. That's the...
Okay, so this next one is a sort of fundamentals adjacent set of concepts. Dunn explains that these concepts are the ways to break an image down into its basic components. So it's a fundamental skill, it's a fundamental set of understandings about drawing and making a drawing. So again, can we argue that the fundamental principle of drawing, and in this case in ink, can we argue that that can be plagiarized? I would say probably not, because otherwise you'd only ever have one book ever published, and as soon as it hit the public domain, no one would ever write a book again. So, so the concepts of having sort of outline or contour or cross contour and form or local value or shading or local light and shadow or texture, I think we have to sort of discount those. They're generic concepts detailing fundamentals. So the only thing that's left on that page is the accompanying imagery, and Parker's got cubes, Dunn's got a really nice drawing of an eye, and I think that works really well because in that image he's showing all the concepts working together, whereas with Parker's you've got individual ones. It's horses for courses, but I think to argue plagiarism for in that particular argument, no, I'm saying probably not. I don't think this is a particularly strong argument.
He has render, and what does he have here? Value, texture, and right here is form. I'm sure, even though I don't see that word, I know that's what he's written. Why? Because that's exactly what I have in my book. In the texture section, and you know what? The cool thing about this, guys, my book was published 5 years ago, but I've done videos 7, 8 years ago where I discussed this exact same concept. If you follow my videos on YouTube, you'll see my book evolved while the content on my YouTube channel evolved. So the evidence is there. Here it is. Texture, form, and value. Texture, okay. Form, and value.
Okay. This is another fundamental concept that we're talking about here. Where for this to sort of have weight, Dunn has to make the assumption that Parker has written form in the curve of the page that you can't see. We can't see it. We can't assume that. We can only go on what we can see. In any case, texture, form, and value, they're fundamental concepts. You can't have a drawing book without some kind of mention of that stuff. And they use different approaches to demonstrate that. It looks like it's possible, and I'm inferring context from the page previously, that it's part of an ongoing set of pages detailing the drawing of this wizard character. The previous page is you've got him. Looks like it's being written. It looks like it's being drawn out. It looks like it's got some, looking at structure, and it's talking about making the base drawing, and then you've got how you actually ink that drawing. Whereas Dunn has gone through sort of a flowchart approach with a cube, demonstrating the different aspects, all combining to make a bumpy cube. So we can't say that the images are lifted, because one's a wizard, one's a cube. So all we can say is the concepts of texture, form, and value, these words, and even the fundamental concept of what a texture is, or what a form is, or what value is, that's Dunn's claim. I don't think that argument really would hold up very well at all, actually. So I'm going to say no on that one. Okay.
Okay. I see some illustrations there that, you know, because at this point I'm looking for everything, right? You know, and he has caused this. Wow. When I look at that, I immediately see the layout that I used in my book, right? Here I discussed materials. And you can see how I laid out, you know, just like I mentioned before, you can see there's the quill pen, and you can see the dip pen. The quill pen, the red pen, the dip pen. I guess it removed read because it would look too obvious. Okay, so I go to the next. Here you can see he's using the same layout design. Guys, listen, when I wrote this book, you know what? It really gave me an appreciation for publishing companies. Because when I did this, all that I put into this book, I learned about the different skill sets, the different professionals that come together to actually publish a book. the author is just a beginning, right? You prepare the content, you get, but the publishers, you have the designer, you have the page layout designer, you have the graphic designer. Sometimes they have their own illustrator. You have editors, different at least 4 or 5, sometimes at least 3 different editors.
Okay, I'm going to flat out say this particular argument holds no water. Sorry, in my opinion, there is no case for plagiarism here, because what is Alphonso arguing here? Well, he's saying that Parker took the layout from the page. He's saying page layout, right? Because let's look at Parker's. Let's look at the page that Dunn's identified. You've got some drawing implements and some text. I can't read the text, but I can tell you that that's in a chapter called History of Ink. The example that Dunn is showing you is from a chapter called Materials. So chapter-wise, not the same. And here's where I'm going to get really sort of technical. Layout-wise, not the same. So Dunn's page on the right. The page you've got, for example, is a left page, so the spine of the book is to the right of the page. This you can tell this also because it's an even numbered page. So what you've got here is 2 columns. You've got the center column is sort of more towards the center of the book, which has got the text describing the drawing implement with various drawings of the implement in question to the left of it. Whereas Dunn's page, you've got 3 columns with text going down the center columns and illustrations either side. So not the same layout. Also, I can't be certain because the text is so blurry on that page. I can't be certain if this is a history of drawing implements or if it is a description of drawing tools that can be used. Impossible, from what I can see of the video that Dunn's produced here, impossible to say. So even if we were to assume that it was materials, a set of materials, the page, Dunn's claim is that the page layout is it's been copied, and it hasn't. So that one's demonstrably false.
That I was like, wow, he copied the way I laid out the pens, but based on what I saw before, I still didn't take that lightly. All right, so here is discussing materials, which is what I'm discussing, materials. So I go through all the different types of drawing pens, drawing instruments. Then I go to unconventional instruments, right? So what does he have? Oh, wow. After he discusses pens and inks, just like I did, then I have unconventional instruments. What does he have? Unconventional tools. I discuss using things that are not traditional drawing instruments. Here I have a sponge, fingertips. So I have sponge, he has sponge. I have fingertips, you can use your fingers. Wow. Okay. After that, I have additional supplies. What does he have? After that, he has, wow, additional supplies. A dust brush, eraser, pencil, and a ruler. Dust brush, eraser, pencil, and rulers. Okay.
So, in this section, he's now talking about unconventional tools, but he also, as he's flipping through that page, you can actually see the pen page. So this also adds further credence to disclaiming the previous argument that the book layout of the material section is being copied, because that page with the pens on in the 3-column page layout, that wasn't pens. We saw the pens. This is the pens. You can see it there. So that was something else. So anyway, Dunn then says that because Parker's used a section on unconventional tools, that he copied it. Well, let's just take a look at examples, shall we? So the examples used are a sponge, a bit of a stick. What else have we got? A toothbrush and fingers. I think using a toothbrush to spatter ink is a well-established and well-known principle, as is using a sponge. A stick is a bit unusual, but not unheard of. So the only other one that's unique is the fingers. Now, Dunn, in his book, is advocating for a fingerprint, dipping your thumb in ink and leaving fingerprints on the page. You can actually see thumbprints all up the page there, whereas with Parker, what he's got is using it essentially as finger painting. He's actually dragging his finger across the page. It's both using the fingers, but fundamentally differently. So if it's well established that other artists in the past have used a short, stiff, bristled brush, like a toothbrush, like a nail brush, that sort of thing, to create a spatter effect on their artwork, then we can't argue the toothbrush. It's well established that painting with sponges is a thing. You can go to any art craft supply and buy an artist sponge. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility for someone to try that. So I'm going to say sponge and toothbrush, discount those. The stick is interesting, and if anyone has ever gone to art college, they always try to get you to be experimental and sort of do bits of paint with bits of stick. But that doesn't matter. Has there been any other book printed that sort of said, try using a bit of stick? I don't know. I'm going to find out. And if I find out, you'll see the image here. If not, you'll just see the still frame. And the fingerprints and the finger painting are two different concepts. So we can't really argue. I don't think we should argue for plagiarism on that one. So again, this is a weak case. It's not the strongest. It's certainly not. It's not like the previous argument, which is demonstrably false. This is basically, can we argue that drawing with a stick, writing about it in a book, is something that can be plagiarized or not? Yeah. All right. Next example.
That I have additional supplies. What does he have? After that, he has, wow, additional supplies. A dust brush, eraser, pencil, and a ruler. Dust brush, eraser, pencil, and rulers. Okay.
Okay, so this is Rendering in Pen and Ink. This is from 1997. It's written by Arthur Guptil, and if we look a bit further through the book, I'm just losing the preview to show some of the early pages. You can see quite clearly a dust brush. So the concept of having a dust brush as an unusual item has already been established and predates Dunn's work. Apart from that, the argument then boils down to, is it plagiarism to argue that if you're drawing in ink, that maybe draw something light in pencil first and rub it out and possibly draw some lines in with a ruler? Is that plagiarism? Really? So then, if that's, I mean, that's like slightly ludicrous. So then it's okay. Maybe the argument is not that, not the materials in question, but its position in the book. But it's a kind of a logical position to have it. If you do a chapter about materials, you're then going to write about the most commonly used materials first, and then he'll talk about sort of sort of unusual or unconventional materials or tools to use. So logically, I don't think there's... Logically, it seems in the right sort of place in terms of we've talked about materials, now let's talk about tools, now let's talk about unconventional tools. That makes sense. I don't think that's plagiarism to say that the logical position of a chapter or a section of a book can be open to plagiarism, because that seems silly. Anyway, let's move on.
Strokes, basic strokes, right? I start my chapter with effective pen control, because I believe effective pen control is very important before I even discuss basic strokes, right? Okay. Style and technique, he calls it. Oh, what's at the beginning? Control. Pen control. He took the pen off and has left control. All right, so I'm discussing the importance of holding your pen a certain way, holding it close to the point and angled, holding it close to the point, holding it away from the point and angled, holding it vertically. Here he has the same thing, holding it away from the point, holding it close to the point. Here I have illustrations of, the importance of being able to be aware of how you move your entire arm. There are times when it's better to move only your fingers and keep your rest of your body stationary. Move your wrist, move your entire arm, depending on the size of the strokes you want to make. Of course, he has the same illustrations over here. You can see them here.
Okay, so let's talk about Dunn's page first. Dunn's page deals with the ergonomics of making marks. So it examines how you can use your fingers, your wrist and your elbow to make sweeping actions at various sort of sizes depending on the space that you're working in, the size of your paper. Doesn't mention the shoulder, which is a shame, because that was one that was always drummed into me at art college, which was, draw from the shoulder. So, and then underneath we have 3 ways to hold the pen in a sort of normal sort of approach. One where you're about a third of the way down the barrel, and then one where you're holding the pen sort of perpendicular to the paper. On Parker's, I don't see anything on that page that sort of dictates the rotation of a stroke, making small circles with your fingers, bigger circles with your wrist, and bigger circles with your elbow. I don't see any of that. What I see is, on the left hand side, 2 holds. One is a normal sort of pen hold. One is holding the pen practically at the end of the barrel, and then on the right hand page we have what looks like some more poses, some more ways to hold the pen. At the bottom of the page we see a drawing of someone pushing their arm forwards, and I'm suspecting from that one he's sort of saying, draw your strokes away from your body, you're pushing your pen away from you. We're only, obviously, as for all these, we're getting influences from a still frame from a piece of video, but if you're asking us to compare those two, they're covering effectively different topics. Dunn's looking at ergonomics of how you make a mark, different angles, rotations, and Parker's just looking at, on the face of it, just looking at holds and to push away. That's it. Okay, next example.
The basic strokes after that. Oh, he discussed the basic strokes. All right. Now look, there are certain types of strokes in pen and ink drawing that are standard. But to just copy the format, come on. Long hatching, short hatching, cross hatching, scribbling, curved lines, curved hatching, stippling, long lines, short lines, curved, flowing, stippling, scribbled, like, at this point, I don't want to see anything else.
Okay, so this is a tricky one. In my notes, I've sort of asked the question: what is Dunn claiming here? He says that there are standard strokes, so the inference is that standard strokes will be published in lots of books about ink drawing. So I don't think that Dunn is particularly interested in or feels that has been copied. In fact, he tells us what's been copied, the format. But I don't understand how he can come to that conclusion based on the 2-page layouts that we've got. So if we're saying the page layout, then no, the page layout doesn't match. The swatches are different shapes, are different colours, different sizes, and there's not as many on a page for Parker. Parker just does a circular swatch with a pattern on it. Dunn gives you square swatches with the pattern offset by like 45-degree angles, so you can see how it could be drawn like across the grain at 45 degrees, 90 degrees. So the page layout doesn't match. He's sort of seeded that basically, you know, the standard type of stroke, these sort of samples of hatching and cross hatching and such like would appear in lots of other books. So what are we talking about here? We can't be talking about the page design, but he uses the word format. So all I can think of is a title which is called The Basic Strokes versus Basic Types of Strokes, and then you've got some swatches. I suppose then his argument is the title is matches. Well, the title is too similar. But I mean, here's a question: how do you describe the basic strokes of drawing in ink without using the words basic types or strokes? Could have a case. There could be some argument to be made there, I suppose. Again, this is sort of like flimsy, because all it needs is a predating book to have the words basic strokes or types of strokes in the title, and the case sort of falls down a little bit. But let's carry on.
So, consistency in lines. Now, I discussed consistency not in this chapter, but in shading. He included it in the first chapter. Now, okay, let's go to my area where I discuss consistency. Here. Now, keep your strokes consistent. There are 4 major aspects of consistency when shading with lines. Now, guys, again, it took me a long time to develop this idea, because I used to ask myself for months, what does it mean to be consistent? It was one of the most challenging concepts to pin down, to crystallize. It took me, this is what you're seeing here on one page is a distillation of several pages and months of deliberation with myself on deciding and trying to clarify the idea. What is, when we say be consistent, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And I would ask myself that over and over again. It took me a while, a long time to really narrow this down. Because as I learned pen and ink, I realized there were certain concepts that were important to be aware of that I couldn't find any explanation for. So I created them. So I thought to myself, what does consistency mean in pen and ink drawing? And eventually I came down to these four factors or aspects. See, sometimes I struggle with the words. I don't even know what to say. I say the 4 major aspects. Like, it's hard to really put it into words sometimes. There are 4 major aspects of consistency when shading with lines: spacing, weight, sizing, and direction. So when I came down to these 4 examples or 4 aspects of consistency, I would deliberately go over them again and again and again to try to test them with everything. What is consistency? What if I don't do this one? Will it throw it off? It's just like we do in science. You take one variable out and see how does it affect it. Does it really not make my stroke seem consistent if I don't pay attention to sizing? If I don't pay attention to direction? If I don't pay attention to weight or spacing, what will happen? I did this. That's why it took me months. What does this guy have in his book? I have spacing, weight, size, or the length of the stroke, and direction. He has weight, spacing, length, and direction. The very 4, he has no idea the amount of work I did. The amount of hours and months I worked to come up with this stuff. And here he just takes it and drops it in his book. Unapologetically, shamelessly, just like what I'm thinking at this point is, does he expect to get away with this?
Okay. I think this could potentially be a legit argument. So, I've done a cursory examination of the internet, looking for other people talking about consistent lines. I found these 2 pages in a book called Rendering in Ink by Arthur Guptil. This is from the 1976 edition. This is available in the Internet Archive. It deals with some of the concepts, but it deals with them separately and doesn't sort of package it as the aspects of a line. So it's not quite as in depth as Dunn's approach. The only other person I've seen anywhere near it is Luis Escobar. He's got a video which I'm going to put a link to here. It's about the 8-minute mark in the video. He talks about doing tests, running drills to check spacing and weight. That's it. So okay, this is a potential argument. Okay, so this is a big win. It's a big tick. It's definitely worth investigating. It's definitely worth getting that queried.
Variation in lines. Wow. See, as I said, he deliberately didn't use the word strokes because he knew that would be a glaring red flag. All right. So he used lines to disguise him using my stuff. I don't like using the word thief or stealing because it's really loaded and heavy, but it is what it is, you know? All right, so after I discuss pen control, I discussed basic strokes. And after I discuss the basic strokes, then I discuss variations of a stroke. Guys, even the format, the sequence of the concepts, that's also very important in instruction. That's why we learn letters, then we learn words, then we learn sentences, then we learn paragraphs, then we learn essays. All right, so ways to vary a stroke. Guys, this is another thing. This is another example of when you copy stuff, you steal people's stuff without even understanding the grueling process of development. It took me so long to decide on what word to use. When I eventually came up with the word variation, it took me, like, I went through several different words before I came to variation, because this is one of the things that was problematic about this, is that I used adjust, I used so many different words. But now, as I said, it was problematic because layers is technically not a variation of a stroke. Because if you change a stroke, you can change the size, you can change the spacing, you know, even spacing to some degree. All right. So you're not really, you know, varying a stroke, but it's more like the configuration of a stroke. So it was really problematic to come down with how I would refer to this. And then eventually I said, you know what? This is the simplest, most effective, concise way to get to that idea. And I chose variation. So the 5 ways to vary a stroke, the 5 variations: size, spacing, layers, direction, and weight. What does he have? Size, weight, size, weight, spacing, layers, and direction. The exact same thing. And what's really appalling too is that he has the audacity to follow the same sequence my book is following. Like, how lazy are you?
Okay. This is another one where I can't find anyone using 5 attributes to describe the variety of a line. So, on the face of it, this could be another argument. But this point that Dunn's just made has 3 subpoints. In it, Dunn claims that Parker has stolen the structure of the book and the word variation, i.e. the headings are the same. And obviously there's the attributes of a line. I think the big winner of that one is attributes of the line. Variation in lines, variation and variety, they're perfectly normal everyday words to describe a variety of ways to introduce new. It's really hard to describe a variation of line without using the word variation. So I think that's less of an issue. Dunn explains to us subsequently, as a teacher, he's used to this concept that you have a concept and you build upon that concept, and that's how he structured his book. But Jake also teaches. I believe he's a professor at Brigham Young University. I'm unfamiliar with the establishment, but he's down as a teaching there, and he does obviously online teaching at on a variety of different platforms. So he would also presumably be familiar with the idea of building upon a previously learned concept, and in fact lots of art books demonstrate this. So I don't think that the structure of a book, in terms of learning something in one chapter and then learning an advanced concept that builds on the previous chapter in the next chapter, I don't think that's really something you can say, oh, you stole that, because lots of books do this. I can't think of a book off the top of my head that starts off with chapter 1 with the finished piece, because that's what you're building up to. And also variety. I think there's only so many ways you can say to try. I think there's only a certain number of words you can use to describe how you can adjust the properties of a line. However, classifying a line into 5 attributes seems unique. So this could be something that would be worth investigating. Right.
Shading complex forms. Shading complex forms. I know it doesn't look as if it's the same thing. If you read his content and read mine, you will see.
This is the problem, because I can't read Jake's text at all. But yes, Alphonso's page deals with shading complex forms, but Parker's is something lines and rendering, and then talks about rendering from small to complex. And if you ever look at the images, you have a collection of geometric shapes. They don't get Boolean together like in the example on Dunn's page. So I'm wondering if this is to do with a concept of looking at things as they get reproduced smaller. I don't know, but I don't see forms. I don't see a complex form underneath rendering from small to complex. I see three primitives. Like I said, we can't read this text, so we don't know. On the facing page, we've got some pictures of, could be whales or big leviathans, and it's possible that page talks about shading complex forms. There's something on the left hand side page, looks like it deals with setting up like a hidden internal contour to show like a, I think that could be a bone, I suppose, or it could be just a shape, I suppose. But there's nothing about the torso, and Dunn talks about merging forms together and carve a complex shape out of a simple one. But the images don't tell us that. We just see three forms, and we continue to see three forms. So I would suggest that this possibly isn't a case.
Yeah. Feathering. That's the same thing as varying line weight. The lines feather out. Thick to thin, thin to thick, thick to thin. Same concept.
Here's a link to a video by Salgood Sam detailing exactly the same concepts of using line weight to sell weight or to cast shadows. This is dated 2015.
Now, of course, you can't see a clear image here, but I'm going to show you exactly what it is. If you go on Inktober, his Inktober Instagram profile, you see where he made a post here from the book. So he's giving little sneak peeks of information taken from the book to build anticipation for the sale, of course. An excerpt from the Inktober book coming soon. Wow, where have I seen this? 2-step, 3-step scale, 6-step scale. Oh, man. All right. All right, right here. 2-step scale, 3-step scale, 6-step scale. Guys, this is another example of something I worked my butt off on. It took me so long. I don't like repeating this. I'm sorry, but it took me so long to decide on the number 6.
All right. Okay, let's have a read of Dunn's page because we can read that. So Dunn is talking about something here called value scales. I can just about read it, and I'll read it to you. One of the most effective ways to practice simplifying, grouping, and distinguishing values is by creating value scales. A value scale is a band of values ranging from black through a series of progressively lighter greys to white, or vice versa. Practice creating value scales using as many different types of strokes as you can. Save the ones you think you did really well, and so either save or use and use them as reference for shading. This helps you to remember the stroke variations you can apply to create the values you want. And there's some examples of a 2, 3, 6 and a 9 step value scale. This is a website called makingamark.blogspot.com that talks about the Denman-Ross value scale, which talks about that exact same concept from a book, and it was devised originally in 1907. It was introduced in The Painter's Palette, A Theory of Tone Relations and Instruments of Expression by Denman Waldo Ross. This predates Dunn's work by approximately 113 years. It's possible this is still in it's still under copyright. Most likely it's possibly under public domain. I believe, isn't it 90 years after the death of the author? So actually it probably is still under it's probably still under copyright at this point. So let's move on, shall we?
This guy, how lazy are, look at my illustrations and look at this. Look at this and look at this. Look at this and look at this. You see, he couldn't do it like this because that would be too obvious. So he did it like this. Here I showed a complex block form. So I'm showing that you can apply the same 3-step value method to applying a complex form.
Okay, I remember seeing this, and remember seeing a page in How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way which looked very similar. Google image search brings up this result, and I think this is what I remember. It's not 100%, but I mean, with some more investigation we might be able to find something. At the moment it's a kind of a maybe. In terms of 3D forms, however, here's a website called Cage's Corner, and this article was written February 2015, and in it the author talks about shading, some great little anatomical studies here, and a sketchbook showing complex 3D forms. So this sets effectively a historical precedent. Okay. And here we can see talking about some gradients and values and stuff like this. Okay, moving on.
Everything, but based on the context of my book, I know what he's talking about here. I know without a doubt he's discussing here local value. This, you know what, this image I created from a YouTube video. And I chose, I said, you know what, I'm not going to recreate it for the book. I'm just going to use that same image. And I scanned it and imported it in the Adobe InDesign software. And I made this to illustrate local value. And why is this important, local value? Because you have to learn how to control the range of your values. So, wow, look what he copied right after that. Controlling the range of your values. Because I discussed it right here. And where does he get this exercise from? Wow. Here, controlling the range of your values. Light to light, middle to deep, dark to, here he has it. Light to light, middle to light, dark to middle, dark to, like, shamelessly, just like how, I'm really appalled. I've never spoken to him. I've never had a conversation with him, never had any exchange. But I would really like to ask him, like, why did you feel the need to recreate my book? And why, and after doing that, without my permission or my consent, you never consulted with me at any point. We never had any conversation. Where in your mind would you feel that no one would notice this? You could get away with this. Forget all the issues of litigation and all that stuff. Like, what would make you believe you could just get away with you know, this glaring amount of theft. Like, they're just taking someone's stuff. Guys, I'll give you a little insight here. Gradation is one of the challenges. I've taught drawing for many, many years. Gradation is one of the most challenging aspects of drawing for students. With pencil, let alone pen and ink. With pencil, graphite, you know, that's how you have even tone. It's much, much, much easier to gradate values. With pen and ink, it's not easy because you're using only, even here, look at this, using different types of strokes to gradate values. He did the same thing here. Look. Oh, but he switched the direction. So I guess that's him being creative. So I go from dark to light. He goes from light to dark. Okay. But anyway, so, you know, what I did to simplify the concept of gradation is break it down into 3 types of gradations. And I teach this in my drawing classes. My students know this. The rate of gradation, the range of gradation, and the direction of gradation. If you can master those 3 types of gradation, shading will become a lot easier for you. And that's why I'm actually working on a Drawing 101 book, an introduction to drawing. And I borrowed some of the concepts from that book to this. And I didn't publish that book first because I was focusing primarily on pen and ink on my channel, and it made sense to create a book that was an extension of my YouTube content. So here I'm separating the different types of gradation. Range of gradation, rate of gradation, range of gradation, and direction of gradation. And he just copied it, boom, dropped right in his book.
Right. I'm very confused by what is actually being plagiarized here, or what Dunn is asserting is being plagiarized. Are we saying that gradients are being plagiarized? I'm having very great deal of difficulty of working this one out. In essence, you could argue that the gradients that you see are extrapolated out from the Denman Walder Ross colour value scales. They're just a bit more blended. You could argue then that the amount of each colour at each end of the line, you know, each end of the gradient, you make a decision how much that's going to be. So that's right now we've described the direction, the rate, and the range, just by editing or altering a value scale. I can't see how that would work. And I'm not sure how this would hold up. I mean, Dunn has got radial gradients, and Parker doesn't appear to have them. So that's one unique selling feature. This one, this is certainly in the flimsy category, I think. Yeah, moving on.
I showed you this already. That, my workbook. Here you have different textures, 4 textures. And I'm showing examples of how to gradate value across textures. Fur, fur. Bumpy texture, a bumpy texture. Scales, scales. And wood, I guess it would be too obvious if he did a 4th one, so he just drew a wooden cube instead. You don't do.
Okay, let's have a look at this image, because I'm a little confused of what we're looking at here. Looking at Dunn's workbook, if you look at the cellular texture, the bottom right one, the bumpy texture, or the scaly texture, top right, as the gradient gets lighter, you can still see the detail of the individual sort of in this case the bumps or the scales. So I'm not 100% I found all the art terms, but could this be demonstrating using a gradient for local values in terms of the shadow? It's hard to tell because I can't read it. The text in the page says something like pressure, something scale, pressure value scale, right? Whereas what Parker appears to be covering here is that the closer you get to a highlight, the less detail you can put into the texture that you're wrapping around your object, and you can see that in the gradients of the scaly texture and the bumpy and the furry ones, those three gradients at the top of the page. Yes, there's a wood cube. There's also a rock sphere, which doesn't seem present in Dunn's book, in his workbook, and there's some notes here about using cracks to add shading in the rock and in the... Oh, that could be rock. That's a crack, isn't it? Bottom left of the page there, that cube. So actually, that's not a wooden cube at all, is it? That's a stone cube, and that's presumably a stone sphere. You've got these like this is pock shadow, or it's either pock or rock shadow. So this is another one of those sort of kind of flimsy looking, trying to compare apples and oranges here, possibly.
Content is concentrated, because the 5th chapter is really I give examples of sketchbooking. I give tips on using a sketchbook. Then the next chapter is the stages of a drawing. Oh wow, right here, see, man, he couldn't have even come up with a different title for his book, his chapter. You know, I'm just noticing this. I didn't see this before. Man. There you go. Stages of a drawing. Stages of a drawing. And then he goes, you know, Inktober, 31 prompts for 31 days of September.
This is a strange one, because for every other thing in the book, in Parker's book, Dunn is able to go to a page and show us this. But he doesn't show us this. It kind of makes it difficult to sort of compare, because all we can go on then is effectively the title of the chapter, which is Stages of a Drawing. But we can see a bit of Parker's book, and we can see there's a chapter title, and it matches. Can't read any of the content, but we can see some of the images, and it looks like it starts off with a stick figure before some basic forms are being put on this stick figure. I'm not an expert. It could be the the wizard character that we've seen in other pages. I don't know what Dunn's section looks like. I don't have his book, so I've gone to amazon.co.uk to look at the table of contents on Alphonso's book, and his stages of drawings are composition, pencil drawing, and inking. Those are the 3 stages. But it looks like Parker's actually saying how he draws a character, because he's starting with a stick figure and then he's putting some basic forms on it. He's not talking, as far as you know, we're not talking about composition here. Or maybe he is, we don't know. We've only got one page and no context. But here's something that's interesting. This is a website. This is virtualinstructor.com. This is a blog entry from February in 2019. It's the anatomy of an ink drawing. And as you scroll down, you'll notice that the instructor, Eugenia House, has details sort of the supplies that you need, and then starts off with the composition. And once she's done a composition, she then creates an underdrawing, her, i.e. her pencil drawing. And we can see her here refining the pencil drawing. And then we have inking, and she goes to really good detail how to sort of ink this thing, outlining the contours, putting in some values and highlighting using hatching and cross hatching, defining some textures, and really showing you some really nice exploded views of like the berries on the cake and that sort of thing. I would say that the stages of making a drawing, going from pencil, working out a composition, putting down some ink, that's surely fairly generic. Here's an example I've just found after 10 minutes of Googling for very specific stages of a drawing. This turned up as the anatomy of a drawing. But this seems to be would be a fairly consistent way of making an ink drawing. So I think this is a flimsy argument. And that is the final final argument that Dunn makes. So let's wrap this up, shall we? This video is already an hour and a quarter, and I'm trying to keep this short. So I'm going to wrap up with a few questions, or thereabouts. First up, let's look at a website. This is Sidebar Saturdays. It's a website set up by a guy called Matt Knight. He's an intellectual property lawyer in New York. He's also an author of near future fiction and a bunch of other stuff. And this is an article on his website dated October 18th, talking about plagiarism versus copyright infringement. We could talk about all different types of plagiarism, different copyright infringements, and different copyright infringement and plagiarism, how to avoid plagiarism. And here's a section: common knowledge, phrases, images, metaphors, snippets of description of facts that are not unique because they are common knowledge to a large population or are used in a wide range of unrelated sources do not require attribution. Now, unfortunately, there's no clear rules as to what constitutes common knowledge, so it's widely known and accessible. There were hundreds of books out dealing with drawing in pen and ink, and things like best way to hold your pen, best way to make a stroke, how to load your ink up onto your crow quill, how to press down with a brush to sort of vary the line weight. I mean, these are surely widely accessible and known, and these would be, what you would consider fundamentals, right? And that's the vast majority of Dunn's arguments. The only arguments I think that have got real legs and are worthy of investigation, and possibly I think definitely it's fishy, and I definitely think wants investigation, is the it's the two sections dealing with the how to describe a line, which is, I think it's 5 values that describe a line, and the bit which deals with how to vary a line, the 4 ways you can vary a line. I think they're unique. I think I've yet to see them attributed to anybody else or see them anywhere else. So that to me seems like a really strong case. But what do I know? People tell me that I don't know what plagiarism is, and you're probably right, because I'm not a clever person. I don't claim to be. All I've done is look at Dunn's claims and look at them, examine them, see if I can disprove them or not. See if there's any other evidence to back his claim up or not. So people tell me that the structure of the book is what's been plagiarized. That this is the actual thing that everyone's talking about, how the book is structured and how it's all put together. So I'll ask a question, and you can comment in the comments below if you wish to answer it, which is this: how can you compare the structure of 2 books when one of them doesn't actually exist? You can't buy it and you can't check it. I'll leave you with a further question. This is further down in the document. We can see what to do if your work has been plagiarized or your copyright infringed. And you can read all this. Link is in the show notes. Plagiarism is an ethical violation with few means of legal recourse. If you suspect this work has been plagiarized, document the offence. Then contact the plagiarizer and ask them to remove the content from print or the internet. You can then alert, if plagiarism is not in a self-published book, alert the publisher and yours and let them settle the matter. That's what you should do. That's what this chapter actually mentions. Dunn doesn't do this. Dunn makes this video. He puts together his case and sends it out there to let the mob deal with it. And that's dealt with here. While it might be tempting to resort to industry shaming, beware of the backlash. Public shaming can land you in the middle of a libel suit. It's tricky to sort of compare the structures of two books, one of which hasn't been published, and there could be cynical people might think that this has all been happening, this has all been brought about to delay Parker's book, to increase sales of Dunn's book, and lots of people are commenting that, oh yeah, I've cancelled my order and I bought Dunn's instead. And currently Dunn is a bestseller. His book is currently a bestseller on Amazon. This could be a problem, especially if the publisher has to protect their IP, and especially if you're incurring costs to not have your book published. You might want to sort of sue for damages, or this could end in a suit. This could end in some kind of lawsuit, and this might end badly. And I think that the real thing is, Dunn's initial argument is protect your IP, and I totally agree with that. And the way you protect your IP in this sample is you get your editor and you get your publisher and you get their legal team involved, and you get them serving cease and desist and all the other bits and bobs that they have to do. And if they don't have a legal department, you wait, you talk to an IP lawyer, see what the case is. It strikes me that I suspect that Dunn hasn't done this, based on the chronology of what he's reported. And it concerns me to see people jumping onto bandwagons, picking sides, and sort of becoming, I don't know, tribalistic. I said in the previous video, if Dunn's got some real compelling evidence, I'll donate to his GoFundMe. I'll back him. I'll support him. I'll say, yeah, go Dunn, go, because you've got a clear case and you've backed it up with something. At the moment, we've got nothing because the book isn't out. There's no way we can just go, well, this is clearly this. We don't even know where in the book this is. So, yeah, this is a messy situation. I'm probably not going to do any more videos on this, because putting together this video that's coming in now, probably at shy to an hour and a half, it's took me 5 days, and I'd much rather be drawing some comics. So let's draw a line under this. Let's hope that a solution can be found, that a judgment can be made that satisfies all parties, and let's hope people can just get on with making some art. Join me next week. I'll be doing some silly drawings. Yeah, okay. I think that's enough. Right. See you later. Right, bye now.